Hello and a very warm welcome to another edition of Talking Germany, the show where we do just that. Now, today's guest is a woman who's a trained lawyer who's worked inside the world of politics and looked on from outside as a political journalist, all of which prompted her to sit down and write her recent book, Why I'm Not Interested in Politics. So let me introduce you to Beatrice von Weizsäcker. Welcome to Talking Germany.
Hello. Thank you for the invitation.
It's a pleasure. Now, I should mention that it's all the more remarkable that Beatrice has written a book with such a provocative title, given that she is also the daughter of Germany's former federal president, Richard von Weizsäcker. Beatrice, we hear it all the time. People here in Germany are becoming disillusioned with politics, disenchanted with politics. Is it true? Is it really true?
I would say no, definitely. It's not, yes, it's even though I wrote this book with this title, because I make a difference between, I think that's very important, between politics and the politician parties. I think that the frustration in our system and in the society is about the political parties, not about politics as in general.
Mm-hmm. So you're blaming the parties. The parties are made up of the politicians. It's one and the same thing.
That's true. It's more, I'm not really blaming the parties. I'm more blaming the system that we have with the parties that makes it very tough, so to speak, to get in the parties, to get influence, to be a part of the political party opinion. So our system is that we can vote every 4 years for the parliament, but we vote for the parties and not for certain people that are in the parties. Mm-hmm. You know, you cannot influence which person on the list from the party will be in the parliament. Okay. So, and that's a big problem, I think, and we could change that system that has some historical reason why it is so. And but in between time between one election and the other, there's actually no really relationship between the people and the political parties. Mm-hmm. That makes it a little bit frustrating.
Big contention. So it's not the politicians who are to blame. Maybe not even necessarily the parties. Perhaps the system. Beatrice, you just told me that you've talked about your father 100 times before, and let's go at your family background from a different angle. Let's talk about your family, the von Weizsäckers. They've got a long and large tradition. What is it like being a von Weizsäcker?
I would say the Weizsäcker part is more important than the von Weizsäcker part, to make that difference. No, because the way you put it sounds like von. It's very important, you know, Adel, etc. No, it's I think it's a very interesting family, and when you grow up in a family with this long tradition, you are of course apart by nature, and you get to be apart by the way you live. By the way you grow up, by the way you let yourself be influenced by the family, the history of the family, of course, also of parts of the family that you only know from reading or hearing about in history. But for me, it's a big influence on my own life in the way of how I think, not what I think, but how I think.
I have the impression, when I read your book and read other things, interviews that you've given, what have you, you're an idealist. Is that a fair statement?
In some way, yes. Not to every point. But I'm idealistic in some way, yes, in the way I believe in certain things, in democracy, things in freedom of
Has that got something? Your family has had a very mixed history. It's been your family's been criticised sometimes for being good public servants and serving many different forms of German government.
What do you mean by that?
Well, for example, your grandfather was a diplomat under the Nazis.
Yes.
Yeah. Has your idealism got something to do with your knowledge, your personal knowledge of Germany's troubled history?
Of course. It's so connected with that that you cannot make a difference between my life and the life. Of course, it's the difference between my life and the life of my grandfather. But his really extremely difficult role that he had to play in his life, and this extremely difficult situation he was in, of course, influenced me. Also, that my father, as a young lawyer, went to court to help to defend his father. Of course, it has a big influence of my life. The way of that, what you think about that you have to stick together in your family, without saying that it doesn't play a role what someone did, but that you have a family feeling, and also have your individual own meaning about different things.
Just give me a quick answer. Do you fear sometimes that when I read your book, I have the feeling perhaps you expect too much from politicians? A quick answer.
Probably yes.
Beatrice von Weizsäcker, we heard a lot of, about the story there, different aspects of the story. What's the core of the problem?
That there is not enough transparency.
How do you achieve more transparency? Well, there is transparency in Germany. I mean, we know who pays what to the political parties, don't we?
Yes, this we know, but this is also, as we know, every now and then a big problem. But what I mean is we don't really know who works for bills that will be laws. This is a very different problem in Germany, a difficult problem in Germany, that we have no transparency on that, because you have many lawyers who work
on actually writing the laws, on writing the bills before they go into Parliament.
Yes, and this I think is not good for our democracy, that the lawyers who don't belong to the government write the laws.
Why are they doing it? Why aren't the members of the ministries who are responsible for whatever law we're talking about, why aren't they writing the laws? They've got their staff.
Good question. I would know the answer myself. I would like to know it. Because the ministries, the people who work in the ministry should do that. Probably it's because some topics are just too complicated and you have to know too much about specific topics to really be sure that what you write in the law is the right thing that you should write in the law. But I think it's a different thing whether you ask for help from outside, which I think is a natural thing. I mean,
there are consultants.
Yes. But it's a different thing whether you ask someone for help or whether a lobbyist gets a part of the political system. This, I think, is not good.
Are we moving in the right direction? We heard about lobby control in that report that we just had. Are organisations like lobby control, are they moving us in the right direction, or is the problem becoming less transparent?
I think it's this project we just saw about this transparency fine, so to speak. This organisation, I think, is wonderful. It's very important. I think we should have more of this, because then when you see the people and we talked about the difference between the people and the politicians grows the less you know about lobbyism. And I think it could melt the more you know about lobbyism, because lobbyism is not bad or good like lobbyism. It's bad when it gets to the point where you don't know what they do.
That is such a wonderfully German story. I'd like to take it on to an abstract level. Are people naturally democratic, or is it something that we must learn?
I'm afraid that this is something that we must learn.
Your family, we talked about them earlier, has been involved in Germany's development in the last many decades, and from before the Second World War right through after the Second World War. The story with Germany is that it is a consolidated democracy that has learned how to be a democracy. Is there is that the way you see it?
Yes, that's definitely the way I learned it. And after the war. Then when you look in our history, especially the awful Nazi time that we had, there could not be any kind of democracy. And we learned it from the minute that there was Germany, West Germany, we have to say, in this part, because GDR the people didn't have the possibility to learn this kind of democracy because of this different system. It's always important to know that, and we can actually be grateful that we got the Constitution that we got in 1949, which has so many democratic, important principles in it.
Okay, but let's go back to your message. Your message is that the parties have become a little bit immobile, that the system has become a little bit inflexible. Is that and people have become disillusioned in many ways with politics. Is Germany's democracy in any way, a question because of that development?
Finally, I don't think so. I don't think it's that dramatic, because
but when we look to the future,
when you look at Germany and the political parties, you see a big movement going on. Also, since our last elections, Bundestagswahl, when we
had federal elections.
Yes, the federal elections. When you look at how many people voted for smaller parties and how they voted, how I think intelligent people voted. I think there is a movement, and it's not so starr.
Okay, so it's not so rigid.
Not so rigid, and I think that the politicians also listen more carefully about what people say about the system, and I think it could be possible that there will be some development that we can maybe in some years vote more for people in a party than just the party itself. Things like that. I'm quite optimistic.
Good. Okay. Very quick. When did you last go to a football match?
I think 2 years ago.
Oh, I've been told that Beatrice von Weizsäcker is a big soccer fan. We're going to have to find out more about this, the story of Beatrice von Weizsäcker and soccer. Beatrice has been telling me that it probably was a year ago that she was last in a football stadium. You have very often been to football matches here in Berlin. We have a local club in the Bundesliga, Hertha.
Yes.
Is that the way it is? The way you've experienced
it? Don't ask me.
I
have never experienced that.
No?
I'm convinced that there are forms of fans like that, but I know many women who are interested in football. Yeah. And they go in the stadium, and also in Munich, where I live now. We went to stadium and a whole group with friends, and I really have to ask them whether they ever heard of this or ever experienced this themselves. I've never. Fortunately.
We've got to clarify one thing now here. You live in Munich, but you grew up in Berlin for the better part.
Well, I didn't grow up in Berlin, but I lived in Berlin for the better part. You lived in
Berlin for the better part, okay. Where do your loyalties lie, with Hertha Berlin or with Bayern Munich?
Hertha, of course. It's not so easy to live in Munich and not be a Bayern München fan.
Exactly.
But it's okay. I'm Protestant and not Catholic, so I'm living like this in Munich and be a Hertha fan. It's more than the people then laugh about it.
Okay, so you know your soccer. Germany, the women's team, are currently the world champions.
Great.
Great.
They are very good. And
they are very, very good. Yeah. I've actually seen them play on occasion. We've actually had one of the team here on Talking Germany. Can the men do as well as the women in the World Cup in South Africa this summer?
Oh, I hope.
I hope so. Yeah.
I hope. I don't know. If I could foresee the future, that would be good. Then I would never tell, but bet. But the women are very steady.
Yeah.
But with the men, I'm not so sure.
Okie doke. We're going to wind up the show. We've got our sporty little Talking Germany quiz at the end of the show. Quick questions, quick answers. Beatrice, yeah? Here we go. Idealist or realist?
Me?
You.
Both, I hope.
Parties or movements?
Movements.
Barack Obama or Angela Merkel?
Both, but more Barack Obama.
On the football field, would you be an attacker or a defender?
Attacker.
Birgit Prinz or Franz Beckenbauer, the two icons of German soccer?
Birgit Prinz.
Oh, lovely. She's been a good guest, hasn't she? If you've enjoyed her company as much as I have, do come back next week. Tschüss. It was Beatrice von Weizsäcker.